When I began teaching at Georgetown more than 25 years ago, it was simple to talk about the role of the news media in American politics because we could easily define what the news media was: television, radio, newspapers, and magazines. We no longer live in that world. Now the news media is everyone, everywhere, all of the time. Anyone with a smartphone and access to wireless or otherwise connection to the internet can broadcast their movies, their perspectives, their images, their words all around the world. And so what you present can be seen worldwide, perhaps by millions of viewers if you are fortunate enough. So we are all journalists now. And trying to understand the connection between journalism, between the news media and American politics is vastly more complicated than it was a couple decades ago. The rise of fake news, the rise of different countries involving themselves in the political news has made our lives, your lives, more interesting and more complicated. Now, traditionally, we might think of the news media really, or journalists having two kinds of slightly conflicting roles. On the one hand, journalists and anyone who is calling themselves a journalist, they're in business to make money, share their ideas, and so forth. And so one of the factors that really drives journalism is the idea that you get people to watch, listen, or read. That is, there's pressure, there are incentives to craft stories to maximize the number of eyeballs that you have. And this desire to maximize viewership can have some pernicious influences, pernicious consequences. So it's easier to focus on the unusual, on scandals, on stories involving sex, drugs, abuse of one for criminality, that focuses more on conflict rather than solutions, that is easy for the public to understand, and so forth. So the incentives to get viewers may make you cover things in ways that don't necessarily produce better politics or better policy. On the other hand, traditional journalists, or now we call them serious journalists, don't want to just obtain viewers. They want to investigate facts, to try to find out the truth so best as they can, to do research that will allow them to create stories that will be informative to the public, that will hold politicians to account, that will reduce public corruption, and so forth. So these different incentives to maximize viewers, but also to produce responsible journalism, that's a tension that most journalists, that is, professional journalists, now not just anybody with a cell phone, but people who are actually journalists for a living, that they experience. So what are the impacts on politics? It's complicated. It's hard for us to understand, but we can think of a couple things that the news media does in politics. It focuses us on certain issues rather than other issues. That is, it helps set the agenda. It focuses on the behaviors of politicians more so than the policies of politicians. It serves, the media serves as a watchdog on political actors, governmental institutions, and individuals, exposing misdeeds, but also highlighting the work that they try to do to serve the public. The media also serves a role, perhaps a lesser one, to persuade. And when I say it has a lesser role in persuading is that there's clear evidence that most of us, most of the time, choose the news media that tends to agree with our preconceptions. So if you're politically conservative, you'll look for politically conservative news outlets. If you're politically liberal, you'll do the same. You look for views that reinforce your opinions rather than challenge them. One consequence of this is the polarization of the news media, in that we tend to watch news media that responds to our tribe rather than seek out other sources of information. So just as we have more polarization among the political parties and more polarization among voters, we also are having more polarization in our consumption of news sources. At any rate, dig in. A lot to learn about the news media. I wish you well. Drop me a line if you have any questions. I look forward to talking with you soon. Thanks.